And now, Turnbuckles, Trunks, and Titles presents to you Nicholas London and Q-Ball Carmichael.
You can only do stuff like that right here on this show. But then there's only one show that's like this. This is Triple T Radio. This is Turnbuckles, Trunks, and Titles. I am Nick. Y'all know me. I'm here every week, and I run my mouth. But then there's the star of the show, the baldest man we know, because if you go close, I still have some hair, but he ain't got nothing. His name just happens to be Q-Ball Carmichael. Q, what's going on, big man?
What's going on, Slick Nick?
Well, I feel like we're cutting promos is what I feel like right now.
All right.
How you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Man, I'm good. You know, it's another week went by really fast. It's back to being Tuesday. So, you know, it's kind of crazy as I walk around the ranch for one of the last times, which is weird because, as you know, we'll be moving our base of operations 1.2 miles up the road, still in beautiful Beulahville, North Carolina. So that's kind of exciting in sort of a weird way.
It's funny you should say that because, well, I'm going to be moving too. To a bigger place. I just don't know where yet. Please don't ask. I don't have a clue. Right now, we'll be considered homeless. But the show will still come to you live every week like only Q and I can do for you.
Look, here's the thing. And this is a true story, and a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm have a very powerful belief system when it comes to a higher power. Call him God, call him Allah, call him Buddha, whatever you want to. I happen to call him God and his son Jesus Christ, who went to the cross for us. We just celebrated the Good Friday and Easter Sunday here. But, you know, my wife and I were in the same situation where we were given X amount of time to vacate the property. And it was very complicated legally, but we decided to do it anyway and just act with it. And we had sat down and prayed because in Hurricane Florence, over 25% of the housing in this town was destroyed by the massive floods that we had. So, I mean, we had 30 inches of rain in 3 days, and town was virtually underwater. So we were of the belief that, you know, if we prayed, things would happen. And happened to be that the next day we saw this beautiful house because we've got our lot already where we're going to build our house, but that's a year away. So we needed a place. Went out and looked at it, and there was a line of cars there, and I'm like, we are not going to get this place. And I walk up, and the guy that owns the house happens to be a fellow police officer. So needless to say, in the brotherhood that we have, we looked out for each other, and the end of the day came, and he agreed to let us keep our 2 dogs, which we have, and which was sort of an issue at first. He agreed to let us keep as long as we penned them. And the move is in process, and we're getting ready to, you know, probably spend our last 3 or 4 days in a house that we spent 6 years in. So it's sort of bittersweet, but, you know, we're looking forward to the new digs. I sent you some pictures. It's a pretty decent place. And, you know, spend a year there, and by then our new house should be built. You know, it all worked out for a reason. You never know what. And I know people that are friends of mine that are not believers, and I always look at it this way. Better to believe and die and find out there's no heaven than to not believe, die, and find out that there is, because now you're not going to get in. So, You know, it's one of those things where it just really, really worked out for us, and we were fortunate. And that's what happens when you're faithful, and the same thing will happen to you, man. It will.
Well, I have to agree with you because I know that Melissa and I have already begun the process, so I think everything will. You know, at the end of the day, it is what it is. So we're going to move forward because, you know, the thing is so much is going on in the world today. Obviously, we both know that the COVID-19, the coronavirus, is you can't hide from it. It is what it is. In the state of Florida, though, guys, we've pretty much finished what we need to cover. So we're just going to kind of move around the map a bit. And right off the hop, I think one of the questions, Q, that a lot of people are criticizing is why is the WWE considered essential in the state of Florida? A lot of people seem to, now keep in mind, if a month ago they were deemed unessential, the world would have been in an uproar, especially the wrestling fans. Now that WrestleMania is over and the WWE has now been deemed essential, the world is now angry, if you will. Why is that? Why are people so critical when it comes to Vince McMahon and the WWE?
Well, here's why. Pro wrestling has always had a stigma with it. And that stigma is that, it's underhanded and it's shisty and Vince is a crook and Vince is that. And, so I think people wait to jump on that bandwagon. And it got worse after Linda McMahon herself ran for office. So he's always under the scrutiny of the microscope of the liberals, if I can say it. So I think they just wait for something to jump on, and wrestling is an easy, big, wide-based target for them to do. It's just like, for many years, I was involved with the Kirby vacuum cleaner business, and I worked my way up, and I own my own franchise, and I told my people the only way you'll get fired is if you lie to a customer because the product's good enough where you don't need to. And Vince is a good, honest businessman. You've never heard of him being shisty, but wrestling carries that stigma the same as a vacuum cleaner salesman. So I think they wait to jump on that one isolated instance where a wrestler gets in trouble or he gets a DUI or something. And this is the same thing, Florida, understand that Florida is not a financially secure state. It's not New York. It's not California. It has a fragile economy. It's got a lower level of living than many states in certain areas. So for Florida, I think the seat tax, as they call it, or the revenue tax for a WWE show was basically money that Florida could collect. And you're talking tens of thousands of dollars when they run a show that they could collect and add to the Florida economy. And I think that was a big decision. And of course, it's not going to fall on the governor of Florida or the governor of the state of Florida. It's going to fall on who? It's going to fall back onto wrestling because it's an easy target. My opinion.
And no, I agree. My thing is in my eyes, it's not like Vince made a boatload of money off WrestleMania this year. Let's be honest. I mean,
Right.
They did break the record. I mean, the attendance was huge. It was zero. There's no money coming in there. No merchandise bought except for online.
Right.
So my feelings, my opinion is why crap on a guy who literally made no money off of that show, but he still put it on for the loyal fans, for guys that have been around for 50 years, 60 years, and still love the business and still want to see it. Just because guys are out of the business doesn't mean that they necessarily hate it. They just have a different opinion about it. That's all.
Right.
I
Right.
mean,
Well, here's the thing you have to understand. Look, there's pro wrestling and there's sports entertainment. Okay. And the two need to be separated. And WWE is sports entertainment. We know that.
Yep.
It's not the wrestling that it was. It's not the wrestling that a lot of indie promotions do. It's not the wrestling they do in Japan. It's a sports entertainment product. And there's room in the world for sports entertainment and professional wrestling.
Really?
And this is what the mistake that people make is they try to run a Vince McMahon operation, but they're in the professional wrestling business. They're not in the sports entertainment business. And that's why a lot of promoters fail. They run a few shows and they're gone because they're trying to be Vince and they're trying to be in sports entertainment. And guess what? They can't do it. It's not pro wrestling. And there is room enough in this world for professional wrestling and sports entertainment wrestling to coexist and be successful. It's just somebody hasn't figured out the formula for pro wrestling, which is surprising because it was around for 80 years before sports entertainment came out. So, that's kind of my opinion on it. And people will differ, and that's fine. And, even though there wasn't people in the seats. Trust and believe the state of Florida got a healthy paycheck because there was revenue earned on pay-per-view. So
Yeah.
they still got their money. And again, it was good business for the state of Florida to let it happen. And it was good business for Vince because Vince promised the WrestleMania. It's the biggest event of the year and has been for 20 something years.
Yeah.
So he went into his pocket and he didn't let the loyal fans down that love his product. And so I think he should be congratulated for giving the people what they wanted to see, what they've expected to see. It would be like canceling the Super Bowl. Look, if you played the Super Bowl in an empty stadium, it would still be the same game, and people could watch on pay-per-view, and they could still enjoy it. Instead, he ran a wrestling event with no people, but it was good for the state of Florida, and it was good for the fans. And so I don't see where the problem is.
You brought up something, though. I'm going to scale back just a little bit. And then we're going to get on to the topic at hand of the night, which, by the way, guys, is one of my favorite topics, the Attitude Era. But before we get to that, you said something about people trying to be Vince McMahon and the way Vince does business. I'm not naming companies because I'm not in the business of let's crap on people because I don't
Right.
we don't need to do that.
No, we don't need to. We're above that.
Yeah, we're above all that. I know a company, and I'm not big on the way they run their business sometimes, but they're professional. They're done nicely, but they have a sign on the wall that says Gorilla position this way, promos this way. And now all their shows are in the same building, in the same town every month. That's fine, but I'm not big on, you don't look at. There's only one gorilla position. There's only one, you don't need to go and, this is where the promoter's office is. Like, I'm not big on all that. I get why Vince does it. He's in, a 25,000 seat arena. He's got to let people know where he's at in that building. But when you're in a building that's only got one room, you don't need to go and set up something to find that room.
Listen, there's an old saying, it's better to be a good original than a great, ripoff. And that's a true story in wrestling. It's like the people that try to be the tough guy and do the Stone Cold gimmick. There was only one of them, and he was the best in the world at it.
Boys, oh boys.
And anything you try to do to be like him, real guys in the business look at you like, wow, what an idiot. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's still a million gimmicks out there. You could come up with one. I had this conversation with a young wrestler on how I came up with my gimmick, 30-something years ago. And I was telling him, and he goes, well, I think this is cool. I said, well, that's the problem. You think it's cool, but you are not doing this for you. You have to consider the fans. What are the fans going to honestly think of that? I said, do this. Next time you go to a wrestling show, talk to the promoter. If you're not booked, say, hey, can I come and do a focus group with 15 people? And you do a focus group and you say, what do you think of this as a wrestling identity? What do you think of this? And what do you think of this? And chances are they're going to pick an opposite one that you picked because you thought it was cool. Yeah. So, it's just one of those things.
We've heard it before in the business. You've heard it. I know you have. I can put spikes on my back. And I can put face paint on my face. It doesn't make me a legendary tag team. I can go and shave this side of my beard and this side of my beard and call myself Cue Ball. That does not make me Cue Ball Carmichael. And I can go around beating people up and say that I'm Mike Tyson. That doesn't make me Mike Tyson. This business has been built on original ideas. From Hulk Hogan to Stone Cold Steve Austin, from a Hulk Hogan era to a Bret the Hitman Hart era. You do the math. You went from 6'7" to 6'1". You went from 340 pounds of pure steel to a guy that was, 225 pounds and could work. And he could work like it was, all day long. So anyway, enough said. It's time for the for the master of ceremonies here to take over and introduce this beautiful segment that we're going to do right now.
Well, this might be a multi-parter too, because we are going to discuss the Attitude Era. Because due to a guy named Tom Brandy, some people may know him as Salvatore Sincere, some people may know him as Johnny Gunn early in his career. But Tom Brandy was a guy that had wrestled for me, against me, for 2 or 3 years. And I'm talking that we were booked against each other weekly almost, because we were two of the biggest guys on the roster. So they would put us together. I was a heel. He was a great baby face. So they put us together. We became very close friends. I was the second person he called when he proposed to his wife. I was the second person invited to his bachelor party, which we took a school bus and hired a driver, and I was at his wedding. So, and now, I mean, that's 20 years ago. And so before that, we were very close though. So Tom got in there in 96. In mid 96, he had a little bit of pull, and he convinced them to let him book 4 of the enhancement guys. So he booked me, Wise Guy Jimmy Cicero, Steve Carino, who everybody knows now, and then an odd man out, as I like to say. Sometimes he'd bring up Julio De Niro, sometimes he'd bring up another guy, but it was always me and Cicero. And then there'd be Steve a lot of times, but Steve had just got married. I was at Steve's first wedding too, and there when his son Colby was born. So Steve just got married. His wife was pregnant, so he couldn't do it all the time. But me and Cicero were right there. And then when Tom left, Jim Cornette had gotten to know us, and he was booking the talent. So from 96 until December of January of 2000, I guess it was, when they bought WCW. That was kind of the end of the road for us. But from 96 to 2000, we were booked constantly. I was there when, they were the WWE was getting their ass handed to them by WCW. I was there when they started to beat WCW. I was there at Madison Square Garden in the back the first time Stone Cold Steve Austin stunned Vince McMahon. And I always tell this story that when you're in the back of a WWE event and the pyrotechnics go off, you jump. No matter who you are, you jump because it's loud.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, but the pop on that stunner was louder than the pyrotechnics at the beginning of the show. So what a great place to be, a moment that's etched in time forever. And I was fortunate enough to be there. When I first got there, Shane and Stephanie had just got there and were working there. And they used to set with the enhancement guys to eat because the other talent was kind of off to the side. So they would set with us. And both of them were very enjoyable people. And as much as people belittle Vince McMahon, guess what? Every time I got there, I got my cash, my envelope. I signed for it. I got my 1099 at the end of the year, or I got my check sent to me. Checks always cashed, and the cash was always green. So Vince always paid me and paid all of us guys on time when they were supposed to get paid. There was never a late check or a late envelope or anything like that. So, I mean, that's great to walk in the building at 2 o'clock, and you got, let's see, who was it at the time? I think it was at the time, and Arnold Skolin would follow us around and look for us to give us our envelopes. So, and then Finkel would too. So it was great. I mean, I loved it, but I got to be there and have a front row seat of one of the most epic periods of time in the history of professional wrestling. So I remember going in there at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Dustin Rhodes was dressed as Gold Dust, and he was pulling his hands up the leg going, practicing in front of the mirror in full makeup and his full outfit he had at the time, which was a body outfit. So he would be in there practicing at 3 o'clock. So you talk about when you tell young wrestlers to work on their promos and stuff in front of a mirror, if Dustin Rhodes could do it, I think a young independent wrestler could do it too. It's going to nothing but behoove you. And that's kind of the thing. I remember telling Joey Matthews, who became Joey Mercury, and Christian York to practice their promos in the bathroom mirror. I said, take 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes before you brush your teeth, and afterwards you practice your promo. And they both come in, and I knew what they were going to say because I had done it too. It feels weird. I said, yeah, but after a while, you'll start to see the improvements, and then it'll feel good. So you got Dustin Rhodes, who was a star at the Attitude Era back then, and then you got him in front of the mirror at 3 o'clock, so he can get the actual experience. He's in full makeup and full costume, practicing his promo. I mean, some people thought it was weird. I'm like, no, he's making the time and effort to make this character as good as it can possibly be. It impressed me. Other people thought it was creepy or weird. I'm like, it impresses me that a guy with this much talent and being, fortunate enough to be Dusty Rhodes' son, which was no easy task, he was practicing. So it was fantastic.
No, but keep in mind, he'd been around too. So that's another thing people need to understand is that, I don't care if you've been in this business for 30 years, you learn this business almost to the day you die. So it doesn't matter. Like, I can't stand when someone that has 15 years and they think, I know everything there is to know about this business. I don't, like, I know everything. I get it. That's fine if you get it.
Yeah.
That's great. You get it. Good. But you know what? There's always that mirror. And, like, we've heard people say that if you don't evolve with time, if you don't change with the times, how many different recreations of Goldust have we really seen? We've seen lots. How many different
What about the Undertaker?
Triple H, Mankind, Dude Love, Cactus Jack.
And you've seen the picture of me from the 4 eras that I put together in a collage, and it shows me with a handlebar mustache, hair slicked down, in a very plain green singlet, not even spandex, nylon, with 8 balls on my knees in that wrestler pose. And you see me 20 years later like this, jacked as an older dude, but looking completely different. I mean, I've repackaged myself 4 times just in my career, which is mostly an indie career, because you have to.
Yeah, but you know what? It's funny, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I'm really not. You say what's been almost an indie career, but the thing is, Q, I'll even call you Chris. The thing is, when you say that, very few people can say they were able to make a living on that independent career. So you say it like it's almost second to being in the WWE, and that's fine. But only a very few select handful of people can say they've made it without having to have a 5-year run in WWE. You were there. You may not have been on TV every week, but you made your impact. Guys like Steve Corino, who now have jobs in the WWE, whether it's a producer, whether it's an agent, whether it's NXT down in Orlando at Full Sail University. The fact is, their impact was big enough that, Vince keeps them around. That's why you don't be so short on yourself when you say it like that. You weren't just
the way
a superstar.
Thank you, and I appreciate that.
Serious.
But the way I reference it is it's almost like if you look at the indies today, I'm not better or worse than any of those guys, but it's a different product than the indies. So it's almost, for me, I don't think people realize what the indies were in the 80s and 90s. And so when I say that, I take it with a grain of salt because I don't want to get a big head, number one. And number two, the indies of today were not the indies of the 80s and 90s.
Not even close. Not even on the same pedestal. Nowhere's near. Because the indies of the 80s were workers. They were bleeding to get somewhere. They worked their ass off and they traveled up and down the roads. That's not a joke. Guys like you that tell the stories of the 500 miles one way, and the money wasn't growing off the trees back then, nor is it now. But they'll never understand what it was like to go from, we'll say, New York State halfway down to California to get a 2-day payoff and drive all the way back to their wife and their 4 kids, and they're barely making ends meet. Nobody will today, boys. They play wrestler more today than they ever did.
Yeah, it's a
And
true
Warrior,
story. I'm I'm proud of the fact that guys like myself and several of the other guys were able to make a living off an indie career. But I was also, I had a great merchandising mentor. Tom Brandy would beg the promoter to put me and him on right before intermission. And after he went over on me, which we always had a big finish or out of nowhere finish or a huge pop, he wouldn't even go to the locker room. He'd go straight to his merchandise table and he would sell merch. And the bigger I put him over, the bigger the crowd, the more money made. He would come in the back. He would do Polaroids in the ring. He would sell merchandise. And he would come in the back and hand me 40 or 50 bucks and say, "Hey, Q, I had $300 at intermission. Here's 50 bucks. Thanks for helping me out."
the,
And
the
that's
the boys today would never understand that. The boys, let me tell you something now. Okay, I've been in locker rooms where the boys did okay at the table. And don't think for 1 second that the boy said, geez, Joe put me over some good tonight. I'm going to throw him a 40 sheet. Or better yet, I'm going to take him out for a beer afterwards to show my gratitude. No, sirree. So when Tom Brady's handing you a 50 or he's handing you a $60, that's pretty damn cool, my friend. So,
yeah. What? So I remember when he was with the WWE as Sal Sincere, he would come back home and go to the Baltimore Indie Show for Maryland Championship Wrestling. He wasn't booked, but he'd still sell merchandise. And we had 700 people in a union hall, and he would do great. And we'd go out to a place called Hurricanes, and Tom would never let I don't know, but he would never let me buy one round of beers. Tom insisted that he bought for me, whether it was food or whether it was beers. Tom Brandy picked up the tab every single time we ever went out, which was pretty amazing. But yeah, and it's funny, back to the Attitude Era, I can define the moment I can define the person that changed professional wrestling into sports entertainment in 2 words for you. Do you know what I'm going to say?
no, but I like guessing.
It was the person that made it sports entertainment. Shane McMahon. You think about him not being trained as a wrestler, going out there and doing stupid shit off the top
Boy,
rope
you ain't kidding.
and that was the guy that changed it from professional wrestling to sports entertainment. Shane McMahon. If you research that and you watch what he did with no formal training, and you look at what he did, you look at the crowd response, he is the man responsible for pro wrestling becoming sports entertainment. Accidentally, I might add.
Oh,
And I would argue that point to the bitter end.
I know.
Because,
I know. Vince likes to say, oh, good for you, Ted. But I'm in the sports entertainment business. Now we can all say that, kind of like you and I could sit here and say, this is comedy relief for you and me, but it is turnbuckles, trunks, and titles. Well,
yes.
he can say he's in the sports entertainment business, but deep down, he still said right on the shows back then, this is professional wrestling. But like you're right, I never looked at it that way. Shane McMahon kind of coined it without even meaning to do it. Not trained to be in the ring, and you and I are the first 2 guys, man. We know if you're not trained, you should not be in that ring because you can really.
That's the way to die.
Yeah, you can die. I mean, accidents are accidents, but things happen. Speaking of accidents,
Uh-oh.
an accident has occurred on the Triple T radio production side when I overheard there could be a bird or a birdman of sorts coming to the radio. Is this true? A birdman?
NASA? Is NASA? This is the lunar module. The eagle's in the nest. I repeat, the eagle's in the nest.
I mean, I heard this.
Yeah, we
but I didn't know if it was true.
A tough choice this past week. And I had to make a really tough decision on whether to do this show and Truth Busters or whether to go in a different direction from a podcast formatted show going to YouTube. We are going to launch Cue Ball and the Birdman with none other than my buddy Ryan Bird, friend of mine for 20-something years, actually came to work for me, and I trained him in the sales field, and he has been very successful. It's going to be a very interesting mix. You got a live wire from Philadelphia coming on the air, biggest Eagles fan in the world, and we'll tell you some stories that just him and I are going to be so funny. But you know, the good thing with him is we can talk professional wrestling, right? We can talk pro wrestling because he's been a big fan. I even at my wrestling school, I body slammed him and dropped an elbow on him, so he's had some in-ring experience that he didn't enjoy. So yeah, it's going to be fun. But he's competent to speak on all subjects and topics. Great guy, live wire, polar opposite decisions that him and I have on some things. They're just completely different. So it's going to be great to be able to be on the air. I had to, my good friend John Stewart. I had to make a decision. It was a very tough decision. I took the weekend to make it, and when I got offered more work, something had to go. So.
Well, just so the fans are aware, you just watched the intro video to the upcoming show that's going to be Cue Ball and the Birdman. So, Q, the fans just seen the intro for the show. It's very exciting. I can't wait to host it. I guess I'm not really hosting it. I can't wait to produce it. I'm excited. It's fresh. It's new. It kind of sticks with the wrestling perspective of our show, and of course another great Triple T radio production. Obviously it's a Mason Lee production as well, Mason Lee Entertainment, Cue Ball, myself. It's going to be really exciting. Now, Q, before we get going, we should talk a little bit about all these amazing and loving sponsors we have right here on the show. I'm talking
Ecam, baby.
Oh, you're talking Ecam. Well, here I am starting off with KitchenAid, and you're going right to the network, the big one, the one that oversees this show and makes everything possible. Well, pardon me, I hope you don't want to put a Hertz on me or something.
No.
See what I did there?
No.
Come on, did you
Yes.
that?
Yes, I saw what you did.
I don't want you to run me over with your new Redline goods from redlinegoods.com either.
Our buddy Mike over there, all you got to do is mention the discount code CueBall, and you save how much, Nick?
Oh, phew, you saved 30%.
That's a lot.
Are you kidding me?
A lot.
You're darn right.
Leather goods, whether it's a shifter boot, pedal covers, headrest cover, personalized, whatever you want on it, hand-stitched Italian leather, COVID-19 free. Just an incredible job by Mike over there. Can't say enough about him. TripAdvisor's been good to us. Hertz Rent-A-Car. I mean, when we travel, we use TripAdvisor. I defy you to find a better price than TripAdvisor. Forget this other crazy name thing, Chicago or Chicago, whatever it is. Forget that. TripAdvisor is the way to go. It's been around a long time. It gets the biggest discounts, hotel rooms, airplane flights, and of course, get a Hertz Rent-A-Car if you're going to rent a car. Hertz works harder because they're not number one; they're number two with the bullet. And this KitchenAid. What lovely wife of someone like you or me doesn't love KitchenAid? You can mix in it. You can make bread, dough, cakes, whatever. It's an amazing machine. We've got Office Max, right?
And the thing is, if you guys are all sitting there going, how do you expect us to remember all this? I can see where that could happen. This is a lot of stuff to remember.
A lot of stuff.
So, guys, when all else fails and you just can't remember, Hey, pop a brainstorm. It'll save your life and it'll help your memory.
Yeah. It's a true story. Makes a big difference for me. You've seen it. You've seen the change since I started taking the brainstorm. All the people around me noticed the changes. You know, as somebody who is getting up there in the years a little bit and had banged their head a lot. I mean, it's done miracles for me. For the average person, maybe that you're switching to do school online and you find it a little bit challenging. Whether you have a job or a career that's challenging, whether you just want to be razor sharp talking to people. You can't beat brainstorm. You get a 30-day supply, and by week 2 or week 3, you're seeing some amazing difference. Go to Amazon, look up brainstorm, and then look at the reviews that it's got. The reviews are incredible. I mean, people just put this thing over so well. It's unbelievable.
Brainstorm is incredible.
And you can
Brainstorm.
always go to triplет.com, right?
Hey man, TripleTRadio.com has it all. Q, I think you and I have made our website as fan friendly can be. I mean, you guys go there and it's right there. The landing page is the first thing that comes up and everything is right on it. So you guys just grab and go, grab and go. It's a great deal. We would never put you in harm's way and we wouldn't stir you in the wrong direction. That's just what Q and I do. We're tight like that. Now, Q, we both know this is going to be more than one show. We can already tell. I mean, we're still talking about Tom Brady, and I don't even know what you're doing. Is that brainstorm again?
Waving a straw at you.
Oh.
Waving a straw at you.
Oh, you hit me.
Exactly.
Look it. You're having way too much fun with the straw. Put the straw down. Where's your wife? Tell her to take the straw from you. Now, in all seriousness here, Q, the Attitude Era was one of the most defining moments in all of history. And during the Attitude Era, some of the things we're going to cover are the tragic death of Owen Hart. I got to say that right out of the chute.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about, the screw job that happened. We're going to talk about Austin 316. We're going to talk about The Rock. I mean, his rise to fame was gigantic. We're going to talk a bit about Cue Ball Carmichael's time there. There's a lot of it. We're going to talk about Cicero's time there. A lot of it. We're going to talk a bit about Triple H's time. You're right there in the middle of it, smack dab, literally.
Yeah.
There was a time that guy, you've heard it said a million times, they didn't think he'd be any more than an intercontinental champion at best. Now he goes down in the history books.
Yeah.
There's a lot to cover.
Sure. There's so much to cover, and there's so many individuals that were such a big impact on that era. Here's the thing. It was a synergistic thing. If you don't have The Rock, and you don't have Stone Cold, and you don't have Mick Foley, and you don't have the New Age Outlaws, you don't have the Attitude Era.
No, you're right.
I'm not talking about those guys. Would you take the top 20 people? If you don't have that top 20 people, you don't have an Attitude Era. So it's they work synergistically together. The sum of the whole is greater than any one individual part. Individual part, you just got a really good guy. When you got all the pieces to the puzzle, brother, you got the Attitude Era.
And I've said it before. People that say, well, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart were smack dab in the middle of it. No, they weren't. Bret left in 97, which is right around the time the Attitude Era became official. Shawn was literally right behind him. Bret left in November. Shawn left in March, April, whatever. But people don't realize that. Austin, you said it. You just said it best. You named off the guys that, smack dab right in the middle of it. The stars aligned with that group of guys. Another guy we're going to talk about, very controversial. Some like him, some don't. Two of them. We've got Mr. Jim Cornette, who some people think he's one of the smartest. If you come out of a box, you're instantly over. We'll talk about that. And the other, Vince Russo. The man that people think was the worst cancer that ever happened to pro wrestling. I always say the worst cancer that ever happened to pro wrestling was one thing, the brawl for all. The only thing I
Oh,
ever hated. But
terrible.
he had
Terrible.
some great ideas, and the boys got paid, and the main events were bigger, and the money was bigger, and the ratings were bigger. Yeah, numbers don't lie. I mean, it's
No, they don't. And I can tell you that every time that I wrestled for them on the Attitude Era, guess what? The buildings were sold out. They were sold out.
yeah. House shows were up. Everything was skyrocketed. Six-figure numbers. I mean, people that want
Oh,
to crop on it, they were rolling. They were balling, if you will.
yeah,
So
for sure. Steal a line from me. They were balling. I'm literally balling every day
yeah, you are.
because
So am I.
I'm the human cue ball.
I'm the human cue ball's brother.
That's right, man.
I'm more
That's
like
right.
eight ball. Actually, there was already an eight ball during the Attitude Era.
Yeah, there was. And guess what?
But
You can be my brother bowling ball.
riveting. I love it. Bowling Ball London. And cue
It
ball
does
Carmichael.
have sort of a nice ring to it when you
Does,
think
doesn't it?
about it.
Bowling Ball London. Coming right at you. No, but there's a lot to cover. I mean, it's no
there's
joke.
there's there's an immense amount of stuff to cover. There's the mass exodus to WCW, the New World Order. I mean, this is going to be once again both when like we did the history of the NWA, we saw both the AWA and the WWF, which became the WWF, which became the WWE, all come out of that NWA. Without the NWA, there's none of those. We're also going to see in this how WCW stole enough talent to skyrocket into the ratings and beat WWE for the first time. And then we're going to talk about
83
how
weeks.
Vince, huh?
83 weeks in a row.
And let's talk about when there's a difference between a Vince McMahon walking around, who's number one in the ratings, and a Vince McMahon storming around, who's getting beat. They're two completely different human beings, and I've seen both of them in person. You'd not
So
want to be on
much
the wrong
to
side of
cover.
Vince.
So much to cover when we do this. We'll try to cover two topics at a time, guys. We can't promise you that. Q gets on a rant, and it's just too much fun to stop him. But we'll try to cover two topics at a time. Please understand, we are still going to have guests on this show. We are still going to talk profiles. We are still going to talk greatest feuds, greatest matches, stuff like that. But sometimes when you get a topic that's just too good to be true, this is one of those topics that deserves the time. You guys love the NWA, you're going to love this. If we can get you guys some extra footage to go with these shows, you can bet your bottom dollar that we will put the footage in. Um, Man, like Austin, we could do a whole show on Austin by himself. We could probably do 4 shows on Austin. Take your
Yeah,
ball and go home.
right.
There's so many things that had happened during his era. He's in
And
an era of his own.
well, here's another thing. The wrestling was great, but the promos of The Rock and of Austin, on of Mick Foley, Dude Love, Triple H, the promos that these guys did were off the charts. I mean, you had guys that were very good in the ring. I mean, very good. And then you had great promos that were just riveting.
Oh,
Going all the way back to Stone Cold, and you get Stone Cold Brian Pillman, with Stone Cold breaking into Pillman's house. I mean, there was some
Pillman's got a gun.
there there were not just promos but vignettes, you know, little segments that they did that were just the impact was incredible, and all that stuff worked together and created this just like the snowball rolling down the hill. It got bigger
Oh
and
my!
bigger and bigger and
Jericho
bigger.
got there in 2000, and he cut that
Y,
promo on The Rock, brother.
Y2K.
You could hear the Titanic hit the ice, or you could hear the Titanic hit the iceberg. You know, you've heard Pillman, you've heard Sullivan say it. You know, I remember one of the great stories Kevin Nash told on an interview one time, the night that Mike Tyson came out and the brawl broke out with him and Austin, and he walked into a locker room and looked at Kevin Nash and he said, "Did you hear that roar last night?" And he said, "The Titanic just hit the iceberg, brother. We're going down." And you know, what a great line, because Kevin Sullivan is so smart. He knew right then and there we're in big trouble.
Yep.
And they were.
Yep. True
And
story.
the thing is, the trouble never stopped from that point.
The
Right
beginning
there,
of
they
the
got
end.
him.
It was the beginning of the
Yeah,
end.
it really was a long end, but they knew
Yeah.
they were done.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
one of the
It
boys is
was
booking,
it, it was almost like at the end they were waving the white flag.
yeah,
Like, we surrender, we surrender.
no,
So
no, that's
yeah, I
right.
mean,
That's right, though. You're right. They did.
yeah.
I mean, you look the night, and we'll talk about this one too, guys, in long form. Look at the night that Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn showed up. You want to
Yeah.
talk about rocking the boat, brother? That was four of the very best that ever did it. And I ain't crapping on Benoit. I know what he
No.
did. That's
No.
fine. I'm not looking at his personal life. I'm just looking at
No,
what
no,
he
no.
did in the ring.
We're talking about the business of professional
Yep.
wrestling.
Thank you.
And when those four guys were interchangeable parts, and any piece that you put together would have an amazing match that would just blow people's minds. So you think about those four guys. Those four guys in any combination were money in the bank.
All day long.
Yep.
Worth
No
every penny
question.
they got.
True story. True story.
So many great
You know,
things.
I remember seeing Perry Saturn in ECW back in the day, and I'm looking at him and I'm like, man, this guy, I don't know, he looks like a star to me. I'm just thinking to myself, right? He's teamed with John Kronos, the late John Kronos, a friend of mine. Um, and I watched these guys with the Pitbulls in ECW, and I'm like, you know, what are the Pitbulls doing here? And what is Saturn doing here? I understand why John Kronos is here. I mean, no offense to the Manners family or anything like that. But John was a big, talented, athletic man who, you know, could go. I mean, he used to do a handstand into the ropes, come back off, and throw a reverse leg kick. I mean, it was crazy. But there's something about a star that's more than physical. There's an aura almost that a wrestling star puts off. It's like either they got it or they don't. And when I finally got it, I was too old to do anything with it.
Well,
But these other guys, they got it. Like those guys, those all four guys, they all had it. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying they were world champion material, but I'm saying that they're tag team champions, intercontinentals, all this other stuff. I think Eddie could have had a point where he could have been a good heavyweight champion, and just sheer out of talent, things like that. But I mean, just interchangeable parts. That was a huge deal when those guys showed up.
really quick, one of the things I want to say, and this is good. This is gonna be good too for the fans. A legend, Rick Rude, once said, "For God's sake, Steve, it's an upper body business." How true is that? That professional wrestling really is an upper body business?
99.99% plus 1 full percent. Absolutely.
Would you say, Q, in your opinion, that it's still that way today, or do you think it's died down?
Um, yeah. See, here's the thing: is if you have healthy legs, you can put them in tights, and you can cover them up with knee pads and boots. Most of them. If you have bad legs, you can cover them up. If you have good legs, you can cover them up, or you can't. It's always been an upper body business. It's always going to be. Luthez said to me one time, he goes, "Kid, you got good wheels." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You don't need to work on your legs." I was fortunate with being gifted with good legs, so I can say that. But the upper body is what people look at. It's from the waist up. It's never going to change.
No, and I always just remember, I always remember that. For God's sake, Steve, it's an upper body business. I think you're right. I mean, you're either gifted with the wheels or you're not. I mean, you know, but you bring up a good point. I mean, you can cover them up. You really
Yeah,
can. You can't cover up all of this. I mean, it is what it is. You throw a singlet
and
on there, but these things are still going to be out.
a singlet only covers up so much.
That's right.
And if an average guy's wrestling in a t-shirt, there's a reason why he's wrestling in a t-shirt.
So, what do you
You
think of
know,
that, though? What do you think of indie wrestlers that are a buck 10 roughly and wearing their t-shirt and their Nike shoes? Pardon that, you're wearing the Nike shirt, made me think of the Nike shoes, and they're wearing the elbow pads they picked up at let's see, Cleve Sports for Source for Sports, and
Fortress 40, somewhere like that. Yeah.
yeah, what do you
Yeah.
think of them? And the guy that's wrestling for just one night a month wearing the same shirt you're wearing. Yeah, but that's how I feel too. If you're not
Thumbs down, brother.
trying to
Look,
work elsewhere and you're only doing the one thing, there's something wrong with that.
let's be honest.
I like it.
I'm almost 60 years old, and I can tell you this: that if I walk into a average locker room, I'm whooping everybody's ass. I don't care, for real. And you put a guy like that against a guy like me, I mean, come on. How legitimate does that look? And I see this all the time. The guy's arms look like, let me tell you what they look like. The straw. They're that big. I told this one guy once, I said, "I think you got 18-inch arms." He goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, 9 and 9."
Yeah,
I don't like it. I think it's terrible. I think it says that it's bogus and it's fake and it's not real and there's no tough guys in it. And listen, I live by this theory. If I walk to the ring, go, and this is what guys do that drive me nuts. You're supposed to go straight up the steps and go in the ring because that's your stage. That's where you're supposed to be. Just walking around the ring stuff, man, I ain't for it. And I can tell you, I sat with Bruce Pritchard when he produced a reality show, and he said the guys that go around the ring are told to go around the ring, and everybody else goes up the steps and into the ring because that's the business. So for me, as I walk up there in that ring, and I'm 6'3" and I'm 260 pounds and I bench 405, there's really no guy sitting in the audience saying, "I know I can kick his ass." Most guys were saying, I try him, but I bet he'd put up a good fight. When that kid with the little skinny arms walks up to the ring and the guy leans over to his wife and he says real loud, "I can whoop his ass." And the guy's a contractor who's 40 years old that works every day with his hands. He's got 17-inch arms maybe, and a big old chest and a little bit of beer belly, but he's strong. He's picking up air conditioning units every day, all day.
yep,
And he's sitting there knowing he can beat that wrestler's ass. That is bad for business, plain and simple.
absolutely, 100%. 100%. I've always said that if you get in the ring and the guys in the front row are bigger than you are, that's a problem.
It
That,
is a problem. And here's the thing is, most of these guys are not even athletes. They're not athletic. They have no athleticism. The things they do look sloppy and bad and terrible. And you can't buy into it if he's slamming a guy because there's no way this kid could pick up this guy. This guy must be jumping. All sorts of that stuff goes through people's mind. And look, if people don't want to watch stuff that looks reasonably legitimate, they can stay home and watch Netflix. None of that stuff is believable except for Tiger Kings. But I mean, everything else, none
oh
of it's
God,
believable. I binge
that too
watch
will
it.
be added to our Attitude Era agenda.
That is The funny thing is, the guy that would have made the most money off it, and every one of them was a crook, is in jail and can't profit a dime. That's the irony of that show.
I'm gonna have my wife sit in when we do that. That'll be a
Oh,
great show for her to, she really thought
did
that
you
was.
see it? Did you see it?
Yes.
Watch. I'm gonna tell you what, folks, right here. I'm not afraid of the big cats. This cat probably goes maybe a pound, pound and a half. He can take your head off right here. This is Joe Exotic telling you. Tune in next week, boys. Tune in and check out me with the big cats. Ow. He clawed me.
I really do. Is that your new cat? Who is now petrified of you?
No, that cat loves me, man.
Yeah? Well, listen, Joe. You better be a little nicer to the cat.
I'm telling you, Joe Exotic is the number one. I'm a gay cowboy with a tiger. Hell yeah.
I have. Here. This is for you right now.
Oh, hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about right there. Joe Exotic, love that cat.
Look at
That's a big cat. That cat can take your eyes out.
Look at that dog.
You gouge your eyes out. Tune in next week for Joe Exotic TV.
That dog is so scared of that cat right now. It ain't funny, Joe.
We got a dog that's afraid of the cat. The cat attacks the dog. It's a little tiny boxer lab mix, and 30 pounds, and his cat's got babies, and his cat are like, meow.
Yep.
And the dog's like, oh. Well, today the dog fought back, and the cat didn't like it. Enough was enough.
Was Joe there?
Joe Exotic wasn't there, but you know what? He's going to be here next week live on TV. Joe Exotic got to make him some money.
Next.
I'm Bo Exotic, Joe Exotic's husband.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to do a whole show where it's only our logo, and they can hear me and you. But I'm going to
interview. Talking about the Tiger King. Son.
I'm going to interview Joe, and you're gonna be Joe.
Oh hell yeah, we do that all day long, man. I get me some meth, get all jacked up, and I can talk real fast, just like this. And I can bring a tiger on the show, even though they can't see it.
Oh my good Lord! You, as always, I love you so much. You make every show so much fun, my man. I don't know what I'd do without you. You are truly an icon on Triple T Radio. I can see why.
Somebody's got to be.
Hey.
Yep.
I can see why you're the. I can see why you're the Hall of Famer on Rope to Rope. Now I get it. I see why they put you in there because you're some funny stuff. You got some funny stuff behind you. I never noticed that until now. Now I get why they wanted you in the Hall of Fame. They must have been some.
I think, in their defense, I think they got to see all sides of me.
They must have been some really good people to bring you in the Hall of Fame.
Incredibly brilliant team that was. Yes, indeed. I believe it was my buddy Malcolm Wallace and Slick Nick London.
Yeah.
Great show. Great show.
With all the best, you are truly one of my closest friends. I look so forward to doing this each and every week with you, my friend. Thank you. I love you. And I can't wait to come back here next week and discuss more in this Attitude Era.
Well, next week we're going to talk about how my tiger would eat Jake the Snake. That's right, Joe Exotic is going to talk about how a tiger killed boa constrictor.